72 years old, still drive myself to the grocery store, still fix my own leaky faucets, still beat my neighbor Frank at chess every other Sunday. And my daughter decided I was too fragile to fly to my own high school reunion. My name is Walter Greer. Most people call me Walt. I spent 34 years as a structural engineer for a mid-sized firm in Phoenix, Arizona, which means I spent 3 decades calculating exactly how much weight a thing can hold before it falls apart. Turns out that skill applies to families too. You just don't always know you're running the numbers until the structure starts cracking. Sandra is my daughter, 41 years old, lives in Scottsdale, 12 minutes from my house in the Arcadia neighborhood, which used to be convenient and is now something I think about differently. She's a property manager for a commercial real estate group, organized to a fault, and she has her mother's jaw and my stubbornness in a combination that has never once led anywhere comfortable. Her mother, my wife Ruth, passed 4 years ago. Pancreatic cancer 11 weeks from diagnosis to the end. That's the kind of timeline that rearranges everything. The way you spend your mornings, the way you talk to people, the way you understand how much time is actually left in anything. After Ruth died, Sandra started calling more, checking in, stopping by without calling first, bringing casseroles I didn't ask for, and opinions I didn't need. I told myself it was grief. I told myself she was scared of losing me the way we'd lost Ruth. Looking back, I was being generous. My 50-year high school reunion was scheduled for September 12th in Albuquerque, New Mexico, 4 days after that Monday morning when everything changed. The reunion was being held at a hotel near Old Town, hosted by the Albuquerque High Class of 1973. I'd been looking forward to it for 8 months, booked my flight on Southwest, reserved a room at the hotel, made plans to see my old friend Dennis Cole, who I hadn't seen in 21 years, and his wife Nancy. On the morning of September 8th, I was drinking coffee at my kitchen table in Arcadia when my phone rang. Sandra, Dad, we need to talk about Albuquerque. The way she said Albuquerque, like it was a symptom. What about it? I talked to Dr. Pepper's office yesterday. That's my physician. Dr. Alan Pepper, family practice, Camelback Road. I've been seeing him for 11 years, and they mentioned they had some concerns about you flying right now. Your blood pressure reading from last month, and there was something about your... Sandra, stop. I put my coffee cup down. What exactly did Dr. Pepper's office say? That maybe you should wait on the trip. Rest a bit. Let me come over this weekend and we can watch movies. Do something low-key. I'll call Dr. Pepper myself. Dad, I'll call him myself. I hung up. Called Alan Pepper's office at 11:31 a.m. His nurse, Betty, put me through inside of 4 minutes. Walt. Alan sounded genuinely puzzled. I haven't spoken to anyone from your family. I haven't called anyone about you. Your blood pressure at last month's visit was 122, over 78. That's excellent for your age. You're cleared to fly whenever you want. I sat with that for a moment. Alan, has anyone from my family contacted your office recently, requesting records, asking questions, anything like that? A pause. Let me check with the front desk. A longer pause. We had a call last week from someone identifying herself as your daughter. She asked about your general health status. Betty told her we couldn't release information without your written consent, and that was the end of the call. Thank you, Alan. I hung up, looked out my kitchen window at the backyard Ruth had planted. The lemon tree, the bougainvillea she babied through 3 dry summers. She lied. Sandra had called Alan's office, been told nothing, and then called me and invented a medical concern from scratch. I didn't call Sandra back. I went to my computer and checked Southwest's website. My flight to Albuquerque, booked under my name, paid with my card, had been canceled. Not by me. The confirmation email had a timestamp of 11:14 a.m., 8 minutes before Sandra called me. She'd already done it before she picked up the phone. The call wasn't a warning. It was an alibi. I didn't know yet what she'd already put in motion. I didn't know yet that she'd been to see an attorney twice in the past 6 weeks. And I didn't know yet that the Scottsdale house I'd owned free and clear for 29 years was at the center of something I hadn't seen coming. I closed my laptop, finished my coffee, and then I did something Sandra would not have predicted. I called my son Robbie. Robbie is 37, lives in Tempe, teaches high school history. He's the kid who never asked for anything, never caused a scene, never once made me feel like a problem to be managed. He picked up on the second ring. Hey, Dad. What's up? She What? How? Called the airline. Used some kind of medical emergency clause. Told them I was incapacitated. Another beat. Longer. Dad, that's not okay. No, it's not. I leaned back in my chair. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be straight with me. Always. Has Sandra said anything to you? Anything at all? About my finances, the house, the estate? Any of it? In the last few months? Robbie was quiet for a beat too long. That beat told me everything. She mentioned something about, she said she was worried you might not be handling things well after Mom. She said she thought maybe you needed someone to, quote, help manage things. When did she say this? Maybe 6 weeks ago. I told her you seemed completely fine to me. She said I wasn't around enough to see the full picture. The same window as the attorney visits I didn't know about yet, but was about to find out about. Timing is everything in engineering. A load applied at the wrong moment, in the wrong direction, will bring down something that looked perfectly solid. I thanked Robbie and told him I'd call him back. Then I sat in Ruth's kitchen for a long time, looking at her bougainvillea, thinking about the specific kind of person who calls a doctor's office pretending to be concerned about their father while simultaneously working a legal angle behind his back. Overprotection is just control with better branding. Welcome to Sweet Family Revenge. Get comfortable. This one is worth the full ride. Drop a comment below, tell me where you're watching from, and if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. That afternoon, I drove to my attorney's office on Camelback Road. His name is Earl Finch. Earl is 68, semi-retired, been doing estate law in Phoenix for 35 years. He's the kind of lawyer who wears reading glasses on a chain around his neck and speaks in complete sentences, which I have always found reassuring. I'd used him to set up my original will after Ruth's diagnosis, a straightforward document leaving the Scottsdale house and my retirement account split evenly between Sandra and Robbie. I sat across from Earl and told him what had happened. All of it. The flight, the fabricated medical concern, Alan Pepper's confirmation, Robbie's account of the conversation 6 weeks prior. Earl listened without interrupting, which is a skill not enough people have. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. Then he took off his reading glasses and held them by one arm. Walt, I want to show you something. He turned his computer monitor toward me. I had a call 2 weeks ago from another attorney here in Phoenix. Inquiry about power of attorney filings and what process would be required to have an adult declared cognitively incapacitated in Arizona. My stomach went cold. What attorney? A woman named Renee Stokes, estate and probate. I looked her up. She's a junior partner at a firm in Scottsdale. He paused. I didn't take the call past the initial inquiry, but I made a note because it struck me as unusual. The caller didn't identify who the subject was. He looked at me over his glasses. But it's an unusual inquiry. And you're in front of me right now telling me your daughter has been making moves. I drove home. I sat in the driveway for 10 minutes. She wasn't trying to protect me. She was building a case. The flight was a test. Or maybe a piece of evidence. My father wasn't well enough to travel, Your Honor. We had to intervene. I went inside, made dinner, watched the evening news, slept 6.5 hours. And the next morning, Tuesday, September 9th, I called Earl Finch and told him to prepare a new will. The thing about being a structural engineer for 34 years is that you learn how to look at something that appears solid and find exactly where it's going to fail. You don't have to tear it apart. You just have to know where to look. Sandra thought she had time. She thought the flight cancellation would buy her a few weeks of me being confused and housebound while she finished whatever she'd been building with Renee Stokes in Scottsdale. She didn't know that I'd been to see Earl on Monday afternoon. She didn't know that Earl had made that note 2 weeks ago, and she absolutely didn't know what I was about to find out on Tuesday morning when I sat down at my computer with a second cup of coffee and started pulling public records. Arizona has a searchable court filing database. I'm 72, not 92, and I've been using computers since before Sandra was born. I typed in Renee Stokes. Then I typed in my own name, Walter Eugene Greer. Nothing filed yet, but the inquiry Earl had received 2 weeks ago told me it was coming. I called Robbie at 8:15 in the morning. Dad, you're up early. I need you to do something for me. Don't tell Sandra. Don't text about it. Don't email. Call me directly. Okay. What is it? I need to know if Sandra has ever mentioned Renee Stokes to you, attorney in Scottsdale. Silence. Then, how do you know that name? There it is. Tell me what you know, Robbie. He exhaled slowly. About 3 weeks ago, Sandra called me. She said she'd been talking to an attorney about, she used the phrase protective planning. Said she was worried about your capacity to manage your own affairs. Said the stress of losing Mom might have affected you more than you were letting on. A pause. I told her I thought that was insane. She said I wasn't paying close enough attention. Did she mention the house? Another long pause. She said she thought it would be better if the house was in a trust that she managed. For your protection. For my protection. She said that? Her exact words, Dad. For his protection. I thanked Robbie and hung up. Then I sat in my kitchen in Arcadia and did the math that I should have been doing for the past 6 weeks, except I'd been being generous. The Scottsdale house, which is actually in Arcadia, but Scottsdale is close enough that the terminology bleeds, is worth, in the current Phoenix market, somewhere between $850,000 and $900,000. I own it outright. No mortgage. Ruth and I paid it off in 2009. In my current will, it passes equally to Sandra and Robbie. Sandra's half would be around $425,000. If Sandra could have me declared cognitively incapacitated, and in Arizona, that's a legal process involving medical evaluation and court filing, she could petition for guardianship of my estate, which would give her control of the house while I was still alive. And if she managed the sale of that house, she'd control the timing, the proceeds, the entire transaction. She wasn't trying to steal from me. She was trying to manage me, which, in the end, is the same thing with nicer paperwork. On Wednesday, September 10th, I drove to Earl's office on Camelback Road for a 2-hour appointment. We went through the new will line by line. I want to be clear, I did not write Sandra out. I am not a man who cuts people off out of anger. What I did was more considered than that. The Scottsdale house, I put it in a trust, managed by Robbie. Sandra has a beneficial interest, but no control. She cannot access, sell, influence, or petition for management of the house while I am alive. If I am declared incapacitated, which I am not, but if, the trust continues under Robbie's management, not hers. Earl drafted it clean, airtight, specific. My retirement accounts, I left Sandra's share intact, but added a provision. If Sandra initiates any legal action related to my capacity or estate while I am living incompetent, her share reduces by half, and the remainder goes to Robbie's children, my 2 grandchildren, Kyle and Megan. It wasn't revenge, it was architecture. You build the structure so that the weak point can't collapse the whole thing. Earl also sent a formal letter that Wednesday to Renee Stokes' office. Not threatening, simply informational. It noted that Walter Eugene Greer was of sound mind and full legal capacity, had retained Earl Finch as his estate attorney, and that any legal filings related to Mr. Greer's capacity or estate would be contested vigorously and immediately. The letter was sent via certified mail at 4:47 p.m. on September 10th. Renee Stokes' office signed for it Thursday morning. I know this because Earl called me Thursday afternoon, September 11th, with an update. I received a call from Miss Stokes today, Walt. Let's say she was recalibrating her client's position. Meaning what exactly? Meaning she indicated that her client had decided not to move forward with any filings at this time. I bet she had. Earl, was there anything else? She asked, very carefully, whether you were planning any legal action of your own. What did you tell her? I told her that you were a reasonable man who had simply taken reasonable steps to protect your own interests. A pause. And that you were very much looking forward to your high school reunion. I actually laughed, out loud, in my kitchen in Arcadia. For the first time in a week, I laughed. If you've made it this far, do us one quick favor. Subscribe. A lot of people watch without ever doing it, but it costs you nothing and means everything to us. Thank you, genuinely. But there was still one thing I hadn't done. On Thursday evening, September 11th, I booked a new flight. Not through Southwest this time, through American Airlines, departing Friday morning at 7:40. Phoenix to Albuquerque, 1 hour and 10 minutes. I packed my bag that night. 2 pairs of slacks, my gray sport coat, the good dress shoes Ruth had given me for our 40th anniversary, and my father's pocket watch, which I take everywhere that matters. I also did something I hadn't done in 4 years. I found the photo album from our 1973 graduation. Ruth and I had met that year, not at the graduation itself, but at a party 3 weeks after. She's in 3 photos from that summer, laughing at something I don't remember anymore. I put the album in my carry-on. Friday morning, September 12th, I was at Sky Harbor Airport at 6:15. Went through security, bought a terrible $5 coffee, sat at the gate, and called Dennis Cole in Albuquerque. Walt, you're still coming? I'm at the gate right now. I heard you might not make it. Nancy had a message from Dennis. I kept my voice even. Whoever called Nancy was wrong. I'll be there by 10. A pause. Well? Good. He sounded genuinely relieved. I've got a table reserved at the hotel restaurant. Lunch. Just the 4 of us. You, me, Nancy, and my brother Pete. I'll see you at 10. I hung up and looked out the airport window at the Phoenix morning. That flat white light that comes off the desert in September. The mountains purple in the distance. Ruth loved that light. Said it was the most honest light she'd ever seen. Nothing hidden, nothing soft. Just the world exactly as it was. I didn't know yet what Sandra was going to say when she finally found out I'd gone anyway. And I didn't know yet what I was going to say back. But I knew that it was going to be short. And I knew it was going to be enough. If you've been listening for a while and want stories like this to keep coming, it really helps if you hit that like button and subscribe. 97% of people never do, but it's what keeps this whole thing running. So, thank you for real. Revenge doesn't always look like a confrontation. Sometimes it looks like a 72-year-old man ordering the salmon at a hotel restaurant in Albuquerque while his daughter calls his cell phone for the 4th time in an hour. I let it ring. My flight landed at Sky Harbor. At Albuquerque Sunport, at 9:52 on Friday morning. Dennis Cole was already in the hotel lobby when I walked in. 22 years older and about 15 pounds lighter, wearing a bolo tie that suggested he'd fully committed to New Mexico living. We shook hands and then he pulled me into a hug, which I wasn't expecting and which I didn't mind at all. You look exactly the same, he said, which was obviously not true, but I appreciated the effort. You look like you belong here, I told him, which was true. Nancy Cole was warm and funny and immediately asked about Robbie, who she'd met once at a Phoenix conference in 2003 and remembered fondly. We had lunch. The 4 of us, me and Dennis and Nancy and Dennis's brother Pete, who teaches literature at the University of New Mexico and had strong opinions about several authors I'd never heard of but listened to, politely. The reunion itself began that evening. Cocktail hour in the hotel ballroom, followed by a buffet dinner that was better than it had any right to be. 47 people from the Albuquerque high class of 1973, now in their early 70s, standing in a room together trying to match faces to memories that were 50 years old. I found the whole thing genuinely moving, which surprised me a little, because I hadn't expected to feel much beyond nostalgia. But there's something about being in a room full of people who knew you before you'd built anything, before the career, before the marriage, before the children, before the losses, that puts everything into a different order. My phone buzzed in my sport coat pocket at 7:14 p.m. Sandra. I looked at the screen for 3 seconds, put the phone back in my pocket, picked up a glass of wine. She could wait. I'd been waiting all week. By the time I got back to my hotel room that evening, it was 10:30 Phoenix time. I had 4 missed calls from Sandra and 1 voicemail. I put my phone on the nightstand and looked at it for a moment. She knows I went anyway. She knows because Dennis told Nancy and Nancy told someone, and that someone either is Sandra's contact or became one. Or maybe she checked the airline app. Or maybe Renee Stokes still had a line open. It doesn't matter how she knows. What matters is that she does. I did not listen to the voicemail that night. I slept 8 hours, the best sleep I'd had all week, and woke up Saturday morning to clear New Mexico light coming through the hotel curtains. Saturday, September 13th. I ordered room service breakfast, called Robbie. Dad, are you in Albuquerque? Having eggs and toast right now. A long beat. Then, oh thank God. How's Dennis? Good, wearing a bolo tie. His brother Pete has a lot of opinions about literature. Robbie laughed. Dad, Sandra's been calling me. He paused. She's not happy. No, she says you went against medical advice. I went against her advice, which she falsely attributed to my doctor, who I called. who confirmed he gave no such advice. Alan Pepper told me my blood pressure was 122/78, and I was cleared to fly whenever I wanted. A longer silence. She lied. Yes, Dad. Robbie's voice was careful. What did you do? I updated my will. I put the house in a trust under your management. I had Earl send a letter to her attorney. A very long silence. Her attorney. She'd retained an estate attorney in Scottsdale. The attorney had already made inquiries to Earl about having me declared cognitively incapacitated. The silence on Robbie's end had a specific texture now, the texture of a man recalibrating everything he thought he knew about the past several weeks. She was going to try to have you declared. Dad, I know what it is, Robbie. Are you angry? I looked out the hotel window at the Albuquerque morning. A clean blue sky, mountains in the distance, the kind of day Ruth would have described as borrowed time in the best possible way. I was. Then I got on the plane. I had one more day of reunion events, a Saturday afternoon tour of the old Albuquerque High building, which had been converted to a performing arts center, followed by a casual dinner at a restaurant near Old Town that Dennis had picked. I went to both, took photos, ate green chile enchiladas, which are a New Mexico institution I had been neglecting for most of my adult life, and which I intend to correct going forward. Sunday morning, September 14th, I flew home. Phoenix landing at 11:20 a.m. Drove myself home to Arcadia, made a sandwich, sat in the backyard and looked at Ruth's bougainvillea for a while. Then I listened to Sandra's voicemail from Friday evening. Her voice was tight in the specific way it gets when she is frightened, but is presenting as angry. Dad, I know you're in Albuquerque. I don't understand why you would do this, after I explained, after I specifically told you that Dr. Pepper had concerns, which were for your health, which I was passing along because I care about you. And now I find out you've been to see Earl, and there's some letter, and I just don't understand why you would go behind my back when I was trying to. The message cut off. She'd hit the time limit she was trying to. I put the phone down on the kitchen table, looked at it, then I picked it up and called her. It rang twice. Dad. Her voice was carefully controlled. You're home. Got in this morning. You went anyway. Sandra. My voice was level. I have 34 years of presenting structural findings to clients who didn't want to hear what I had to say. You learned to be level. Dr. Pepper didn't say anything about my health. I called him the morning you told me he had concerns. He said my blood pressure was excellent, and I was cleared to fly. Silence. You called an airline and canceled my flight using a medical emergency clause. You fabricated a physician's concern to justify it. A pause, and you retained an attorney to explore having me declared cognitively incapacitated. Dad, that's not. Earl received the inquiry from Renee Stokes' office. He made a note. He showed it to me Monday afternoon. My voice stayed even. Flat. The way a report reads when the findings are not in dispute. I'm not angry at you, Sandra. Then why did you? Because I protect my own interests. The same way you were protecting yours. A pause. I changed my will. Earl can walk you through the details when you're ready. The house is in a trust. Robbie manages it. Your share of the retirement accounts is intact, with conditions Earl will explain. Nothing on the other end for a long moment. Then, you put Robbie in charge of the house. Robbie administers it. Dad, I was trying to make sure you were taken care of. After Mom, I just wanted to make sure nobody could take advantage of you, that you had someone looking after. Sandra, I stopped her, gentle but complete, the way you stop a load-bearing calculation that's gone in the wrong direction. I am 72 years old. My blood pressure is 122/78. I flew to Albuquerque, attended my 50-year reunion, ate green chile enchiladas, and flew home without incident. I am not a problem that needs managing. I let that sit for a moment. But I understand that you're scared. I understand that losing your mother changed something in you about how you think about losing people. Her voice when it came back was quieter. I just didn't want to lose you. Then stop trying to contain me. I said it simply. No heat, no accusation. Just the fact. That's not how you keep someone. She was quiet for a long time. The will stands, I told her. Earl can explain it to you. It's fair. It's designed to protect everyone, including you. but it is not changing. A pause. And Sandra, yeah, next time you're worried about me, call me. Don't call my doctor's office and don't call the airline. Just call me. She said she would. I don't know yet if she meant it. But I meant what I said, and that's the part I can control. I hung up, walked to the back door and looked out at the bougainvillea. Ruth planted that thing in 2001. It survived 4 dry summers, 2 record heat waves, and 23 years of a man who doesn't know the first thing about flowers keeping it watered out of stubbornness. Some things hold together because the structure is right, and some things hold together because somebody refuses to let them fall apart. I went inside, made coffee, and on Monday, September 15th, the day after I got home, the day after I called Sandra, I booked a trip to New Mexico for the following spring. Just me. Green chili season. I've been too long away from things that are good for me. Ruth would have agreed. If you liked this story, join our community by hitting that like button and subscribing for more real, raw, and family-centered stories.